Major funding for this program provided by the Moving Image Trust Fund. Additional funding for this program provided by the Arkansas Agriculture Department.
Hello, I'm Tony Brooks, and this is Agri Arkansas. Agri-economics. There is an incredibly complex relationship between the economy of Arkansas and agriculture. Looking at the big picture can be dizzying. $17 billion of value added to the Arkansas economy in 2011, nearly 260,000 jobs, and $10 billion in labor income. It's just as complicated for individual farmers and ranchers who face the challenge of raising their livestock and growing their crops amid external forces like global markets and Mother Nature that are beyond their control. The line between a good year and a bad year is often razor thin, and the end result often has an impact on all of us who consume the food and use the products generated by the agricultural community.
Farming is one of the few businesses where your price is set for you. You don't dictate what the price is for your product. You have a futures market that's out there. It's going to tell you what the price is. It doesn't care if you paid an extra $200 a year for diesel fuel this year, or had to pay more for fertilizer or chemicals for your crops or your livestock, or more for your veterinarian bills. It's not worried about that. The price is the price in agriculture. And that's one of the challenges that farmers face, is trying to make those decisions based on what these futures prices are.
The whole economy around in Arkansas County is based on really the way we go. It's the way we go, that's the way the town goes, actually.
We thought we were going to be okay carrying into 2012 from a water situation. And then there was a problem. We started warm in 2012, and we stayed warm heading into the spring. There was really no clashing of the air masses. Cold air in place, warmer air comes up, we get the clashing storminess. That really never happened. So it stayed warm all the way through the spring. The next thing you know, here we are in April, May, June, July. It's not raining anywhere. And we end up with the driest April through July on record in Arkansas.
Conway County, Polk County, this particular area right here seemed to be almost the epicenter of that 2012 drought. About in the middle of the summer there, panic kind of set in, and I think a lot of guys decided that they needed to cull their herds at the very least to the younger stock and try to protect them.
Since then, cattle prices have really escalated. 3 years ago, just a pretty good grade cow, $800–900. You know, just a commercial cow. Today, 2,000 plus.
The entire nation is at a 60-year low in cattle numbers. We've got the same number of cattle we had in the early 50s. The escalation in retail prices is a direct link back to the drought years when production was limited. We thinned cattle out in 2012, 2011 and 12, okay. We're 3 years later, we're at the low.
The South is very unique in the crop mixes that we have. We can produce rice, we can produce cotton, soybeans, corn, wheat. 2011, when we had all the flooding that was happening here in Arkansas, you had some of the ground up in extreme northeast Arkansas. The Black River got out, the Cache River got out.
The other problem with 2011, with all of the rain, is the Mississippi River was also running very high. You've got all this water in the White River, it has nowhere to go. So it's flooding farmland, and it just sits there.
A lot of those producers were planning on planting rice on that ground, but just couldn't physically get in and do it. If you were in other parts of the country, if your crop didn't get planted, you're more than likely out of luck. But here in Arkansas, we have such a long growing window. A lot of those producers were able to go in and plant some soybeans, maybe a little later in some instances than what they would like, but for the most part, we're able to get a crop in and had a pretty good year that year.
You know, if you look at weather conditions, yeah, obviously they affect. We had a drought 3 years ago. So a lot of the farmers in the area, they fed hay earlier in the season. They fed feed throughout the year. During the summer, they usually don't feed any feed or grain products. They usually pasture their cattle. They weren't able to because the pastures just were not there. Actually, as far as feed and farm supply, that was one of our better years. But part of that was because since there was very limited hay, limited foodstuffs available to the farmers, they had to buy processed grains. They had to buy the corn, the feed from us to keep their cattle up. Now, where we saw a downturn was later on going into the next summer because, number one, the pastures did come back. What cattle were left were being pastured, and there weren't as many cattle out on those pastures either. So we did see that downturn a little bit the next summer and into the next fall.
Farmers and ranchers, if they're having a really good year, especially on the farmer side, every new vehicle that they have, truck, tractor, everything will be that year. Because the year that they have the really good year, they go out and they buy everything that they need. One, for the tax write-off, and two, because they put it off for 10, 20 years, and now they finally gotten the resources available that they can do something with it.
I've been in the business my whole life. I grew up here. I've been specifically selling cars 40 years next March. So I've seen a lot of really good years, and I've seen some down years in the economy. But without question, the farming drives our economy. And as you can see by our inventory, look at all the pickup trucks that we have. They dominate our inventory, and that's in direct relationship to our customers. That's primarily farmers.
I think most consumers at the store level, if they know cattle prices are up, if they hear that on the news, whatever, they'll accept a raise or an increase in prices at the retail level on a temporary basis. What I think will happen is if the price continues to go up or it stays up for an extended period of time, we will see people start adjusting their purchasing.
Economically, if the ranchers and the crop producers are doing well, the rest of the state's going to do well, because that is what drives this state. I think right now you're going to see some cattle producers spending some money on some much needed infrastructure and equipment that they haven't been able to. And that's an investment in Arkansas.
Given the market conditions, weather conditions this year, for Arkansas we're in, as relatively speaking, a favorable period as we've seen in a number of years.
Here again, it's another team effort. You know, we need y'all to consume our products, and y'all need us to grow the products. So if we have a good yield, then the consumer will always have plenty of high quality products in the grocery. So it's a win-win deal.
You can't control the weather. You can't control how things are going to work, and so you've just got to do the best you can with what rain you have or the abundance of rain that you have, the ground cover you have, or a couple years ago like the drought, the ground cover you don't have anymore. What are my resources? What is my availability? What can I do with what I have? And that's the basics of economics right there. What do I got? What can I do with it?
We'll talk more about agriculture and economics later in our program when we will be joined by Rich Hillman, Vice President of the Arkansas Farm Bureau. In 2013, the Arkansas Department of Correction had an average daily population of 14,780 people behind bars at a cost of about $63 per inmate. Some of these prisons are located on very fertile farmland. Well, that excess of manual labor along with fertile land is working out quite well for the ADC to the tune of about $20 million.
What we're trying to do is reduce the cost of inmates per day per meal. The Arkansas Department of Correction is a very diversified operation. It's not only prisons, but we actually have an agriculture division. It goes from everything from milking cattle to processing and packaging meat.
All of the inmates who can work in prison do. Everyone has a job. And we're actually growing everything from A to Z here. The food that's grown on the farm is eaten by the inmates. This helps save taxpayer dollars as far as turning around food for the inmates. So the inmates are eating what they grow.
The Cummins Farm consists of about 17,000 acres. Of the 17,000 acres, we farm roughly about 12,000 in row crops, 1,200 in vegetables, and the rest would be in pasture land or hayland to support our cattle and livestock operation. We do everything from a cattle operation, roughly 2,800 cattle on this farm, a dairy operation, roughly about 300 to 350. We're milking about 150 a day. A swine operation, which has about 2,800 head. We also have a horse operation and a chicken operation, layers, where we produce and package all our eggs.
What's going on, man?
A typical day for the inmate worker is to get them up around 4 o'clock in the morning. They eat at 4:30. Each individual supervisor will check out the number of inmates which work. It may be anywhere from 10 to 25 per supervisor. They'll go through a security check. From that point, they're transported to their working area. They'll work until dinner time. We feed them on the job, and then they go back to work, and then we return them back that evening. Basically, it's set up on a 8-hour work day. Some of the operations work from sun up to sundown, especially depending on the seasonal work. If it's farming, sometimes we even working, throughout the night on harvest seasons.
Well, our farm operations are important to our agency because they provide jobs for the inmates. They develop a work ethic. They learn new skills and skills that will help them when they go back into society. This helps prepare them for reentry. Before a lot of these inmates came to prison, they weren't used to this type of work. They didn't know how to do this type of work. So these inmates are really gaining some new skills. They are learning to grow food. They're learning to operate farm equipment. They're learning to do what they would need to do to put food on the table. So in a way, it will help them in their personal lives because they can grow their own garden, but they can also take the skills that they've learned in prison and apply it in the free world.
Well, I enjoy it actually because I'm, at first it was learning something new, completely new. I've never worked in a milk processing facility, and then within the facility, it's always something. You learn this position, this job here, and then I'm moving on to something else, and before long, I know it all. So when somebody leaves and he needs somebody in that spot or do this job or that job, then I'm able to step in and do that.
The farming operation here is very much like a free world farm operation. If they need new equipment for the farm, a new tractor, anything that they might need to make this operation run, they're going to use the resources that they've earned to turn around and invest in that equipment. So the state is not picking up the tab for the farm operations. It's a self-sustaining business.
Just the agriculture division within the Department of Corrections, we turn roughly $20 million a year. Of that $20 million, $7 million of it goes toward what we consider as inmate consumption. That's food that the inmates actually eat.
This reduces the cost that we have to pay to feed inmates. Right now, it costs about $1.83 per meal for inmates. So if we didn't have this operation to support feeding the inmates, those costs would be much greater. So this is a tremendous asset to our agency.
You ain't got the line tightened up on this side. Tighten the line up. Tighten it up.
Shay Wilson, spokesperson for the Arkansas Department of Correction, will be talking with us later about the prison farm program. But first, we'd like to take you to Clarksville for a visit to a Peach Pickin Paradise.
Peach Pickin Paradise.
We're located here just between Clarksville and Lamar, Arkansas, about 100 miles west of Little Rock, and we're primarily a pick-your-own peach orchard. We have about 20 different varieties. We start with what we consider to be the first really good variety for Arkansas is a Red Haven. And we continue, each variety overlaps each other, and they will last for about 2 weeks.
How you doing today? All right, how are you? Good.
We're a family-owned business. This particular farm, my ancestors, I guess it would be my great-grandfather, came in 1876. So we were, when the Arkansas Department of Ag started the Century program, we participated in that, and we're a Century farm. Peach production here on this farm started probably in the 20s or 30s, 1920s or 30s. Really got into the more commercial end of it in the 30s and 40s. And we've been here as Peach Pickin Paradise since the late 70s until current. This is our third generation of pick your own orchard on this ground.
We're just picking. Yeah. Picking and grinning.
It's a family activity. We have grandparents and kids passing it on from generation to generation, and that's part of the reason why we're out here, because it's just something beautiful to see families connecting, and the older generation passing on to the newer generation some of the traditions that they have had.
This is a tradition of coming out and just picking peaches every year. We've done this for I can't tell you how many years. And there was a time when my wife's dad and her dad all came out and picked, so we wanted to start that tradition again, so that's what we're doing.
These are a lot better. They must have had a bumper crop this year. My memories go back till I was probably the age of my granddaughter that's here, who just turned 9. My grandparents were residents of Clarksville. I can't remember ever going to my grandparents' house in the summer that you didn't open that refrigerator during peach harvest, and it would be full of these beautiful peaches. And so my grandfather taught me at a young age the secret to picking peaches. Don't pick them on the outside of the tree. Everybody does that. Get in there in the middle where the luscious, big, ripe ones are.
We really just enjoy providing a quality product. So many people go to the grocery store and they just can't get what we offer here. And my grandpa, for one, he loved fruit, and he wanted to be able to share that with people. And so if he could get them to come out, show them how easy it is to pick. A peach is on a tree. It's not like a berry you're having to bend over. It's really not that hard to do. And eat a few while you're out there. It's really easy to hook people for life and get them to keep coming back.
Goes back to my childhood. Came here probably, ever since I was 12. It's nice to come out and, to a place and pick peaches that have, don't have pesticides and, just it's like it's from the earth,
When you're supporting the local, farmers and really trying to support, the people that live in Arkansas, people really don't value that anymore, I don't feel like. You go to Walmart and you really don't know what you're getting. Here, it's raw and it's natural. So juicy.
Yeah.
Well, it is a little late in the season for picking your own peaches, but make sure you have put it on your to-do calendar for next season. Joining us today now is Rich Hillman, Vice President of the Arkansas Farm Bureau, and Shay Wilson, spokesperson for the Arkansas Department of Correction. Rich, we're going to start with you. I wanted to talk about, in that segment, we saw that agriculture is Arkansas's largest industry, so it's natural that when farmers have a bad year, it affects just about every aspect of the economy. 2011-2012, back-to-back bad years, 2011 with a flood, especially up in northern Arkansas, and then 2012 with a drought. Have we recovered from that double slam?
Well, first of all, Arkansas farmers and ranchers are very, very resilient. With that said, probably the answer to both is not fully. The flood is probably less permanent, but the drought, especially in western Arkansas, we lost a lot of dairies. The livestock industry, our herd is down probably 250,000 head. This was all due to the drought. So the drought has a longer tail, and we're still trying to get out of that.
Has that been a major contributor to, I mean, we've seen a dramatic decrease in the number of dairies in Arkansas. Is that the major culprit there?
No. Over time, and not very in the far past, we had over 1,000 dairies in the state of Arkansas. Now we find ourselves with less than 80. That is due to a multiple of downturns in the dairy industry, but certainly the drought hit them hard. I don't know about you, but I still like to get my milk from Arkansas.
Right.
That choice is being taken off the table as we speak, so they are still struggling.
Okay. We were talking in that piece about the cost that farmers must face, that they pretty much have to do in order to make a successful row crop or agriculture or venture of any kind. It's always a gamble. You've always got these factors that you have no control of. But now I want to talk a little bit about the new farm bill, where there's no direct payments to farmers now. That's going to be a big factor.
It is. For the state of Arkansas as a whole. Most Arkansans are familiar with the giants, the Walmarts, the Dillards. Actually, to the state's economy, Arkansas agriculture is bigger, and $243 million a year left the state of Arkansas with this last farm bill. This new farm bill is predicated on crop insurance, probably more of a Midwestern crop insurance. We're still struggling trying to get it to fit for our producers. So some of the stability that we had with our last farm bill is certainly not there. In essence, we're working without a safety net right now.
Had a chance to travel up in northeast Arkansas recently, and I'm an old cotton farmer, and looked like the cotton crop was late, but yet they're still pumping water to it, hoping that they can make that crop. That goes back to what we're talking about. They're still investing money, but we still don't know what's going to happen with that crop.
That's right, and certainly cotton prices have gone down with all of our commodity prices, the grains, and so those costs, we try to mitigate all the risks that we can in agriculture. Some of those costs are necessaries.
Mm-hmm. But there's still that risk.
There's still that risk.
Okay. Shay, let's go over to you. 17,000 acres, I guess, makes the Department of Correction farm one of the largest in the state.
Absolutely.
And from what we saw, one of the things I didn't realize was that the state does not pick up the tab. You guys are much like you face the same uncertainties and with returns as other farmers in the state. So if you have a good year, you have the capability of buying new equipment, building your operation. The year goes bad, you don't have that luxury.
That's right. I mean, we do face the same uncertainties as other farmers, and even like this past fiscal year for FY14, we still were able to provide $850,000 in savings as far as food costs go for our inmate population. So while we do face those uncertainties, it makes up such a big difference to us in what we're able to put on the table for the inmates.
Now we're talking about amazing numbers. I had no idea that it was that large and that there were that many, the volume of food coming out of there. But we're talking about savings not directly just relating to the savings of the food on inmates, but that savings is translated to every Arkansan that pays taxes.
Absolutely. One of the important things about our farm program is that it provides inmates something with a good work ethic. They go out, they work hard every day, they're able to get their hands in the ground and really produce what they're eating. They learn a job skill, and in turn, they're saving the taxpayers money by putting their own food on the table.
Okay. But aside from the economic benefits of this operation, as you just alluded to, you're teaching skills that perhaps they can put to use finding a job once they're released from prison. Have there been any numbers on how many that are released from prison go on to find employment based on what they learned while they were working on the farm?
Well, you think about all of the jobs that are available on the farm. They learn to plant, they learn to operate heavy equipment, they learn all types of harvesting skills, and they're able to go out and translate that into the free world and find jobs, maybe working on a farm operating heavy equipment. They learn to work on that equipment. So there are so many options available to them, and a lot of them, when they come to prison, they don't have that background.
Right.
They've not been exposed to that type of lifestyle. So it really is a great learning experience for them, and it does provide them with some very marketable skills.
Well, and a sense of pride. And you related a story to me earlier about a gentleman that you were talking to that was working in the milk processing area, and you said you're really doing a good job on that milk, and his answer to you.
Yes, he was cleaning, and he turned and looked at me and he says, "Yes, ma'am, I drink this milk, so how clean this equipment is important to me."
Okay, so that instills a sense of pride in them that they're able to do that. Now, the vegetables, I know that the beef and that sort of thing can be frozen. Do you have a process there where you preserve the vegetables, the products that carry throughout the year?
Absolutely. We eat them seasonally, so that the inmates have them seasonally, and they have them fresh from Satellite Gardens and from the prison farm. But we do have a vegetable processing plant at the Varner unit, and so we freeze vegetables for the wintertime.
Very good. Thank you both so much for being with us. We're out of time. That's all the time we have for now. We want to thank our panelists for being here today, and we want to thank all the people who worked with us to bring you this episode of Agri Arkansas.